one.
No, Mother. Forgive me.
Enough. I have endured.
Curse you!
Tarnished. What is thy business with these thrones?
Alright fam, welcome back to the channel guys, and welcome to another build showcase that comes to the Elden Ring itself. Today I'm going to showcase to you a build that truly is going to help you, no matter if you are a beginner within the Elden Ring itself or a veteran like myself. This is a build that truly is going to help you beat the Elden Ring DLC with the base game with a relative ease. As we know, the Elden Ring has tons of amazing builds, but unfortunately all of those builds have one thing in common, is that when you enter the DLC it becomes totally nullified. They may be extremely powerful in the base game, but in the DLC itself then it's simply not viable anymore. So I constructed myself a build that's really going to make sure that you are strong not only in the DLC, but definitely 100% going to be strong in the base game itself. This build is constructed around surrounding 2 unique weapons, 2 OP weapons, and scales themselves perfectly and immaculately on bleed itself. So let's check step by step in form of the armament that we're using, the skill set we have, the stats we have, if it comes to constructing this build forwards. First and foremost, let's check the stats of this build. As we know, we are right now at level New Game Plus 5 itself, or level 243. We're using 60 points into vigor, 32 points into mind, 44 points into endurance, 66 points into strength, so we can wield our strength weapon as maximum as best as possible, 50 points into dexterity, 10 into intelligence, 50 into fate, so we can cast a flame gamut strength, and of course 80 points into arcane, so we can truly maximize our damage output of our bleed weapons as much as we can. With these stats I can use different form of weapons, different form of strength weapons and bleed weapons as much as I need and I want to be versatile in every form of situations as I see fit. The main weapon that we're using in form of our DPS output is going to be the Bloodraven. The Bloodraven I like to use it in form of the base game against enemies that is quite easy to maintain the combat movements. It does extremely high burst damage, and of course it stacks its bleed extremely fast. Secondary weapon we like to use is the Blood Fiend Bone, or what like you call it within the community itself, the chicken bone itself. This weapon does an extremely form of a burst damage, probably one of the highest level of form of burst damage and a strength weapon. So that's why we're having 66 points into strength, so we can really wield the Blood Fiend properly, but wielding it in a proper way, which really doing the max damage out of it. Casting spells, but I'm using the Dragon Communion Seals. For the spells, I'm using the Golden Vow on a dagger and a Flaming Gamut Strength in form of spell itself. The one thing you need to understand if it comes to these 2 spells, first of all, is the Golden Vow. The Golden Vow provides me with 50% damage buff and a 10% damage negation for 80 seconds in a PvE aspect. The Golden Vow also provides me with a 10% damage buff and a 7.5% damage negation for 45 seconds in form of a normal spell aspect. The Flaming Gamut Strength itself, and the difference in that, Flaming Gamut Strength gives me around a physical damage around 20% and 50% in PvP. Flaming Gamut Strength also provides me with a 20% increase of fire damage and a 50% in PvP. It is a flat buff and a duration of 30 seconds, equal towards the Old Lord's Talisman itself. So keep that in mind if you're applying this. For the talisman I like to use, if it comes down to wielding the Blood Fiend sword itself, I use the 2-handed sword talisman. Increases my attack power when I do wielding an and heavy strength weapon by 50%, especially on a heavy attack and a normal attacks. I use a Lord of Blood Exaltation, increases my attack power by 20%, especially when it procs himself to bleed. I use the Dagger Talisman, it enhances all my critical hits. By the weapons I'm using with Divya and the Blood Fiend, I'm doing a lot of critical hits. And of course, I'm gonna boost every single thing, weapon skill that I have with a Shard of Alexander that increases my skill power for another 15%. Complementary with these talismans, what I like to use a form of sets. First of all, the first set I like to use is the White Mask of Array. The White Mask of Array increases my attack power for 10% for 20 seconds long. Once it's only activated against the enemy itself. What it does, it stacks itself perfectly with the Lord of Blood Exaltation talisman itself. The moment I have a bleed proccing itself, the White Mask of Array increases my attack power for 10%. Additionally, for the proccing that is activated towards the Lord of Blood Exaltation. Because I'm using the Blood Fiend and the Rudivia, the bleed effects increases himself extremely fast and builds himself extremely fast itself. Because these two weapons, the Rudivia and the Blood Fiend itself, are the best weapons if it comes to stacking your bleed extremely fast into the game itself. Additional to this, I like to use the Akasha set itself. The Akasha set, what this does, increases my attack power for 2% for every single set I have equipped on. I have 3 pieces on, my leg piece, my chest piece, and my arm piece. That's 6% increase of attack power. I have a form of buff, flat damage, just for having these sets activated and of course equipped on. By far the best wishes for you to pick if it comes to want to test this build firsthand and early on into the game itself, all the way to New Game Plus and the DLC. The very first class I recommend you to pick is of course the Bandits, because the Bandits is a very starting class that only has the Buckler Shield, a very powerful shield if it comes to parrying, but also has in class is from the beginning, it has a very strong affiliation, it goes to Arcane itself. So you don't have to put a lot of points into Arcane to be able to wield and do a lot of bleed early on into the game itself. It also have a knife itself, but when the moment you find yourself with Davia, you can dual wield the 2 knives. You can start having a feeling how it is by playing with 2 knives, 2 daggers at the same time. The secondary class I like to recommend you if it comes to starting with this type of a build, of course, is the Confessor class. The Confessor class start themselves with a staggering 50% if it comes to Faith itself. So that means you don't have to cast Flame Gummy Strength, at least don't have to put too many points into Faith to be able to cast Flame Gummy Strength at the beginning. The Confessor is also one of these classes itself that scales himself perfectly. It comes to strength and the dexterity itself. That means if you want to go for a strength road and from the beginning itself, the Confessor is a very strong class to do so from the beginning itself. But last and not least, my favorite class into the game itself, and simply the best class overall, is the Witch class. I always recommend a single player to test the Witch for the first time playing into the Elden itself. Level 1 across the board, 10, and is the easiest one to level up if you are trying to gain the experience you need and learn you to think outside of the box a little bit more better. Because you never forget, this build is very much a very strong build, a very potent build in the DLC and the base game, but it's also on a high risk has return type of a playstyle. So playing with a class like a Witch really teaches you to be a little bit more cautious, but at the same time aggressive at the beginning as well. So these are the 3 classes I recommend you if you want to test this build for yourself. It's the Bandits, the Confessor, and of course the Witch. And that's it, guys. For additional questions, and you can always reach me on the comments down below, and of course on my Discord page. I'm always there to help you. If you have any more form of questions left or right, I'm always here to answer. I'm your host Yashin. Welcome to the Alot Games, and I hope we can see you all in the next one. Next tip and trick build video we can see and abundance within the channel itself. We always try to think outside of the box of which builds we can still construct within 2 years plus within the Elden Ring itself. Which type of playstyle we can still advance and of course make our life on a playthrough within the Elden Ring as easy as humanly possible. This build is very much an easy mode build playstyle if it comes to beating the game very fast and very easy. If it comes to your base game, of course the DLC, you will not find any other build within the community itself that does this DLC and of course this run of the base game of such so easily as this build I'm giving you right now, hands down. You will see for yourself if you're playing it and testing it that every single boss, every single counter you come with becomes like easy mode. any form of questions, like I said before, don't forget and do not hesitate, give me your thoughts on the comments down below. Of course, give me your necessary feedback in the comments down below. Any form of questions, you're going to reach me on the Discord page or any other video I drop in the channel. So I'll start rambling off. I can see you on the next one. Take care. Well love.